So onward to the coach detail page. It's time to replace the dummy content we got here with some real content. For that, I'm going to get rid of all the content in here and write this from scratch again. In this component, I want to have a section where I, first of all, let's say using that base card, output the name and the rate of the coach. So here we could have the H2 tag where we output the full name, and below that H3 tag where we output the rate. So $, then interpolate the rate, and then make it clear that it's an hourly rate by adding /hour. The next section of data which I want to have on this page here is, let's say, the contact button. So here, again, using the base card, I will add another H2 tag, actually, like this, where I want to say, interested, reach out now. And below that, render a base button, which of course will technically be a link, so we should add the link prop, going to the contact page for this specific coach. Now, of course, this coach will have a dynamic ID. We can view this page for different coaches. So I will bind to contact link, which is a computed property, just like full name, which we will add soon. And on this button, I'll just say contact. Actually, I'll put this into a header tag here, the H2 tag and the button. And below that, now add the router view, where later this nested child route, the contact form, will be rendered. And now below that section, with the contact form and the contact button, below that section, I'll add another section where I use a base card, in which I want to show the badges, so the areas of expertise using the base badge component, and below that the description for that coach. So here a paragraph where I output description. It's not something we rendered before in any component. It should of course be included in the details. And on the badge we use v4 to go through the area in areas, bind the key to area, bind the type to area, and bind the title to area. So basically as we did it before. Now for the script section here. Of course we get props here, and actually I don't get all these values here as props, but I just get an ID as a prop. Now why do I get an ID as a prop here? Keep in mind how this component will be loaded. It will be loaded through routing. The coach detail component is loaded here on this path. Therefore, theoretically, it wouldn't get any props at all. The router loads it, and the router by default passes no props. But you learned in the routing module that by adding props true to the route config, you can ensure that this dynamic value, so the concrete value for the URL, which is then visited, is passed in as a prop of that name into that component. So here I named this ID, and therefore, when adding props true here, the view router will pass the value ID holds in the end as a prop to coach detail. And that's why I wanted, or I expected, as a prop here. And we can then later use that data, that ID, to fetch the relevant coach data from our Vuex store. For that, I'll add a data option here, where I add a selected coach field, which initially is null, but which soon will not be null, because when this component is created using the created lifecycle hook, I want to reach out to Vuex and fetch the concrete coach data for this ID, and then set selected coach equal to that. So in created, I'll set this selected coach equal to this $store getters, and then go to coaches, so to the coaches namespace, /coaches, getting all coaches. But of course, here I don't need all coaches. Instead, I'll call find, and find wants a function where I go through all the coaches and compare the ID of every coach to this ID, so to the ID we received as a prop, which is part of our URL. And if that returns true, that's the coach which we ultimately return and which we store in selected coach. And that's how we find a coach in our coaches list. Now, theoretically, this could of course fail if the user enters this with a URL that contains the ID of a coach we don't know, but this is only possible if a user directly enters this URL, not through the links on our page. And therefore, if the user does that, I'm fine with a broken experience, because that is actually not even a way of using that app which I want to support. So therefore, it's fine for me to fetch the selected coach like this, store it in data here, and then add some computed properties to make sure we have things like the full name or the contact link here. So here, let's add full name, where I return this selected coach, first name, plus a blank, plus this selected coach, last name, and add a contact link computed property where I return this $route path plus a slash plus this ID plus a slash contact. Now keep in mind, we're also referring to rate and to areas here in our template and to description. And currently these data properties don't exist. We just got the selected coach. So this should actually be selected coach.areas, or actually better, use computed properties. So here then add the areas computed property, for example, where I return this selected coach areas, and add the rate computed property where I return this selected coach hourly rate, and return the description computed property where I return this selected coach description. With that, if we now go to the details here, we see the details for this coach. So that is working, and we see our different data on the screen now. So that's that details page. Of course, you can tweak the styling to whatever you want, but I'm happy with this. Now it's up to us with what we want to continue. The register page, the contact page, maybe the filter component to make sure we can filter. I would say that's a good next step. So I will continue with adding that filtering logic next.